brilliant as usual, honestly. So I hope that the rest of the day is gonna go this good for us too. So right now we're gonna pass from our marvelous keynote to the first session. I have to comment to the chair of the session. Can you remind me, please, who is the chair of the next session? I think it's Dr. Andrei Boar. Do we have everyone?
Yeah, Lela, good morning. Maybe yes, I have a presentation here, but I think there are more people, but I don't know.
No. There are other people before, but you are the chair, no? As far as I remember.
Okay, yeah.
You should be according to my data. But in any
Exactly.
case, I'm here to support. What I want to say is that unfortunately, we have another victim of COVID who fell ill and he cannot present. And it's giving me creeps because we keep on getting this information from UK to Malaysia to wherever you find our participants in that people are keep falling ill actually for this virus. So we have a bit more time for other presenters. So instead of 4 presenters right now, we're going to have 3. So you each more or less gain additional 5 minutes that you can enjoy, okay? Is that fine?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay, so each presentation instead of 20 is going to have 25 minutes. And Andrea, I would just ask you to keep tab on time.
Yeah.
And to notify your co-presenters when they're out of time, if that's possible.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. So starting with Javier Martinez on impacts reduction in the printing sector. So Javier, the floor is all yours.
Hello. Hope everybody hears me. Good morning. Lela, is everybody hearing me, you know?
We are hearing you. Whenever you ask a question and I'm not here to answer in person, you're going to see in forum a little window pops up when I say yes, it's all okay.
Okay. I may need also your help, you know, to go through my presentation and to put it on the board because I'm also not familiar. Okay.
You can start and I will share as you go, okay?
Okay. Okay, I'll try to go through it. I would like to say thank you to the organization to be able to share with you my thoughts about an industry that I think everybody understands is a really polluting one. I would like to also thank Beate for her excellent presentation. And I hope we can go through my presentation. However, it's there. A brief presentation. My name is Javier Martinez. I am from Madrid, but I live in Barcelona. I am an environmental and forest engineer and in the printing sector since 20 years. Actually, I am the president of Ethere, European Toner and Inkjet Remanufacturers Associations. And we are, I would say, in a very important moment because a new legal frame may be developed in the next few months. So we are trying to go through this process. Okay. I was just starting my presentation by looking at other management models that have been very long in our, how to say, in our lives. I would say that forest management has been like hundreds of years. We understand quite well how do we have to manage forest, and we have come from fire burning and coming back to very innovative practices like genetic selection, protections against plague, and still we can use prescribed fire in some ways that help the forest to grow even stronger. Okay. Then I was trying to share also with you the automobile case. You know, we have been in the automobile case for, again, some dozens or a year, maybe even 100 years, and we understand right some of the things that already Beate also addressed, like the right to repair and how a second-hand car can be managed, etc., etc. Okay. However, the data of reuse and circular economy is extremely low, and we talk globally about 1 to 2% reman industry weight in the global sectors. But guess what? We have a sector where reuse is really, really big. And this is the aerospace, where reuse in aircraft and all the devices is huge. The costs are so high of these things that they have to be reused. So on one side, we have a lot of people that would like to have a new thing, and because they consider a second-hand or a remanufactured item could have some, so to say, performance problems. But on the other side, we jump in a plane that had gone through maybe a complete revision, and it has been completely disassembled and reassembled after some 1,000 hours of flights. So what I want also to highlight is the role of innovation. And I think with one of the key persons that is also attending, David Fitzsimmons, we have tried to define the difference between what is true innovation and what, in my opinion, is not true innovation. And we try to call it innovation. Innovation being a process to create a product or service that is worse from a circular point of view than a previous one, okay? Unfortunately, we see how this happens more and more. Okay.
You're going to have to guide me on which slide I need to go, okay?
Okay, we are on slide 6 right now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's right. Okay, thank you, Lela.
You're welcome.
And I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Okay.
Not
So we were talking about true innovation versus what I do not, or we feel very much in our sector not being true innovation. Okay. Electronic products and waste management, in my understanding, they are in the prehistory of sustainability. I mean, they are very, very far from other examples that I already highlighted, like the forest, you know. And it makes, and I would like to link it also with Beate presentation and the difference between cost and price, you know, because when you manage a forest, you will have a lot of externalities, meaning that you will produce clean air, you will produce water, but nobody is going to pay for that. So why is so important start managing waste on a proper way? Well, it's growing exponentially. Takes a long time to decompose, and the toxicity is extremely high. With this in mind, I would like to go on the printing sector that probably with telephone and other devices is a key example of very or extremely low sustainable performance. Okay. The data I'm sharing with you, this is coming from a consultancy process that was contracted by European Commission to assess the market last year. And it was found, for example, that in the domestic and SOHO market, you know, the average life of a cartridge, I mean, not the time it's installed in the printer, I'm talking the time it's working, because the average yield of a cartridge is 288 pages, and the average life in a printer that is making 15 pages a minute will be 19 minutes. Okay. Also in this study, you can find that a regular customer will buy 4 cartridges a year, what means he will be printing 1 hour and 15 minutes during the whole year. We're talking globally, okay? Then normally after 4 years, he has to replace the printer. And the printer that has been replaced has been operating 5 hours. Honestly, I think this is a real catastrophe, okay? Now, I would like to go further and talk a little bit about some, how to say, you know, greenwashing techniques. And we have seen a lot of proposals lately about MPS management from a brand approach, okay? So many businesses are tempted into having a contract 4 years, and after 4 years, change the complete fleet, okay? The data I'm sharing with you, it's from an example on a hospital on 900 printers. But while I did this presentation, afterwards, I was also contacted to help support a fleet of 8,000 printers that came at the end of the contract. And fun enough, you know, the performance exhaustion of this 4-year fleet was exactly the same as this 900 fleet. So it looks like 15 to 16% is a 4-year performance exhaustion of this printer fleet, okay? Meaning that if only a 15% of the global printer fleet has been used, okay? Well, then I am trying to compare what was the traditional model. In the traditional model, no, please, you know, the average life use was something between 15 and 25%, and it was not used more, probably because price of parts, and when there was a problem, it was invited the customer to change it. The fleet change was around 8 to 10% on a fleet like the one we have seen here. And what I assessed was, what if, you know, we keep this 4-year-old fleet and keep it running for 4 years more, okay? If we keep it running for 4 years more under the normal transactional business, we will only need to change 8 to 10% of the fleet, not the whole of it. This will create 0.9 ton, because every printer here weighs like 12.5 kg, and the total and the cartridges you will need will generate 9.34 tons of waste. Now, if you change the whole fleet, you more than double the impact on the market, you know. And I'm not considering what it means also to have to change all devices, meaning bringing somebody, removing the old one and placing a new one, okay? Let's go to the next one, please. So I think one vital thing, in my opinion, is that why is this happening, you know? And in my opinion, is because many times we are tempted with convenience rather than effort, okay? So what happens now is corporates, they look at the printers every 4 years. They decide to change them all. That's easier. As key performance indicators, they only take into consideration the page output and the euro cost. Decision is made by somebody administration because the contract was ended. Printers' age are all the same. This means a tremendous impact to the planet. On a fleet managed like this, you will see printers having 500,000 pages with others that still have, after 4 years, the initial cartridge inside. This model does not create jobs except in the manufacturing countries that we know. In Europe, there is no such a plant. Customer becomes more and more hostage, and we know who wins. So if we think about companies right now, and I ask them, what is your car fleet? I know all of them will tell me they have different models and different brands. But when we talk about the printer fleet, very likely everybody has the same printer fleet. It's just a brand approach. Lela, can we go on, please?
Of course.
Yep. So what I am proposing, and there are some opportunities there, is towards innovation in printing, going to a circular, continuous circular model. Okay. So we have to think on printers relocation and repair. We have to think on reuse cartridges. But what is also very important is that we start thinking on this type of contracts. There must be one key performance indicator, that is impact measurement. Okay. For this, we need to raise purchasers' consciousness on sustainability. Of course, we need a legal frame, and I think it has been already covered by previous presentation. To fight against program obsolescence. Beate also spoke about the right to repair, and we need an eco-design regulation. We also need, and this is to be aware that today it looks like merchant acquisition is the only way to move forward. And you know, it's been very long since we have seen some companies being split because of the competition situation. Okay. And I think it's also very important, I'm sure Beate will agree on the telephone case, that we have to go to a more standardized and easy to repair from even the design point of view. So next slide, please. So the model I am proposing, and actually I would say that it's being well accepted. You know, it's okay. Companies should make a continuous printers assessment. I mean, at least once a year they have to check. Okay, they have to have a strategy to change printers when become obsolete. It's important that into these key performance indicators, page outputs and euros is also balanced with planet impact. Decision needs to be oriented to less cost. Printers age, as in a forest, you know, you should have printers with 2 years, but maybe others, you can keep them for 10 years or for 15 years, okay? In my opinion, for example, I know how La Caixa does it in Spain, and they are really, really conscious, and they really squeeze the printers. They don't change them if there is no need to do so, okay? It's important, I think, as in the cars, you know, to have a brand mix, maybe for, I don't know, very fast machines, there is a model, it's more efficient this year, but next year it will be another brand more efficient. It's important that we highlight the freedom to repair, the freedom to choose. By remanufacturing, we create way more jobs, and we understand now how important this will be in the future. And these are local jobs, you know. Let me share with you that there are basically at domestic level 4 manufacturers, and at global level 11 original equipment manufacturers. All of the 11 original equipment manufacturers, linear production is set out of Europe. But 3 of them, and I want to talk about them, that are Brother, Ricoh, and Lexmark, are already having remanufacturing. And guess what? Remanufacturing premises of the 3 of them are in Europe. So for linear, they do not generate so much amount of jobs, but for circular, yeah, jobs are generated in Europe. Okay. We need to be clear that by the use of technology, we can have a balanced printer fleet. Today it's very easy to have a system that gives you a lot of information in order to make the right decision, and easy is very much your assessment. Assessment is not a consultancy. Assessment can be as simple as run a program for several days and gather all the information. Sure enough, the planet impact will be decreasing. Okay. Next slide, please. So now in the comparison, what I do is, okay, put in scope the 3 different models. We have spoken already about the traditional model that was changing the printer when broken, okay, and how it was impacting. And in this printer fleet, we spoke. It was 10.24. I also explained the second case that was a linear contractual model, and this was generating 20.59. But there is another opportunity into the circular model positive impact innovation. And if we make the needs assessment on a continuous base, and we relocate and repair machines, the fleet change can be rated at 0. How we can get that? It's very easy. You know, we have to identify where are the hot spots and try to place there printers that are underutilized. Remember that we have exhausted in 4 years 15% of the life of the printer. So we could even have 3 shifts and only reach 45% of the performance exhaustion. I think this performance exhaustion, meaning bring the good to the end of the technical life, it's key in the future. Okay. If furthermore we reuse cartridges, I'm not saying to reuse 100% of the cartridges, but just 50%, and at a 75% efficiency, you see that the savings in terms of waste generation can be as high as 70%. Okay. I'm sure you understand that with this savings in waste, in parallel, we can have a tremendous saving in cost as well. We don't have to buy a new printer. Reuse cartridges cheaper. So the amount of money that corporations should pay for this model, it's much, much better. Next, please. Lela, are you there? Okay, because according to some studies, you know, when you see a cutaway cartridge, and for example, you see the amount of parts that you can reuse is incredible, because basically you have to add a new filling and change a few blades. So the mostly more than 75% of the cartridge can be reused. What is important is that every job we can transfer from recycling to remanufacture will be multiplied by 13. So it's a very good case that if we truly get some legal change, and I will talk about it later, we can have tremendous cost savings. I think everybody's aware on the expense of printing, and we can have a tremendous also resource saving. Next, please, Lea. So we have a tremendous opportunity to change the business model. There is huge potential of reduced negative impacts. There is a huge potential of saving cost, and for that we only need to raise our conscience, try to go away from this convenience and try to make a little big effort on that, because it's going to pay back. And in the previous slide, I was also sharing with you some what I consider relevant documents to move further on this model. At the end of July this year, the GPP on imaging equipment was published, and one of the key things on this GPP, it not only covers criteria to choose the proper or the less impacting printer or multifunctional, but also talks very clearly about how to make the needs assessment, how to define which printers need to be changed, and how to decide during the life of these printers, how are you managing them to reduce the impact, okay? Being conscious the most polluting impact through the life of the printer. And of course, the more the duration of the printer life, the bigger the importance of the cartridge use by each printer. Okay. There is also, for the ones of you that are interested, another study published by European Commission is the cartridge remanufacturing study. And sure enough, Circular Economy Action Plan has a clear wording announcing that European Commission will make legislation for under the Eco Design Directive for printers and cartridges. And this is exactly the moment we are, and we need to really change this business model. And well, as you see, we have a chance to innovate for positive impacts. And I think this is key. Thank you so much. This is what I wanted to share with you. And of course, I'm welcoming any question coming from you, if any.
Thank you very much, Javier. Are there any questions right now to be posed by the audience at this moment? Oh, for the time being, no. Okay. Use the contact information that Javier provided here. So Andrei, I will give the chairmanship now to you.
Yeah.
And I think David Fitzsimmons is the next one presenting, if I'm correct. And I will excuse myself and stop sharing the file. Okay, you did it already instead of me. Beautiful. Okay, so David is next, and then Andrei is taking over the chairmanship. Okay.
Yes,
thank you.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. Hopefully I'm clear. Thank you very much, Javier. I really enjoyed hearing that presentation, expressing your frustration, I think, with one sector of industry and product policy. And I liked your reference to innovation, this new word which hopefully we will toy with in the future and try to define I'm not going to give you a series of slides in this case. I'm not going to try and share my screen. I'm inspired somewhat by Marco Caldera's presentation yesterday afternoon in relation to Portugal, when he was unable to share his screen, but gave a really good presentation, I thought. So I'll try to emulate that presentation. I'm David Fitzsimmons. I'm the director of the European Remanufacturing Council. And I'm very sorry not to be with you in Barcelona. Instead, I'm here in Brussels this morning. And although it's, believe it or not, the sun is shining, it really doesn't compare to being in Barcelona. But I hope there'll be an opportunity in the future where I can join you face to face. My presentation is about product life extension, sometimes described as product value retention. And the context of that objective of product life extension is principally the planetary boundaries that were set up, I thought, really well by our keynote speaker, Professor Schafel from Oslo. I thought a really excellent summary of the problem that we have as a society. In truth, I think as far as product life extension is concerned, the principal metric has been for some time now carbon emissions. Although I do agree it would be far better if we used a series of dashboard measures rather than just CO2. When we look at what the CO2 emissions have been and how they're progressing, in spite of all our best efforts to increase material recycling, for example, to improve product design, to move to more renewable sources of electricity. The fact is that since I was born in 1960, when there were 315 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere, we're now moving past 450 parts per million. And that has been a progression year by year by year as it aggregates. And I think we've become very dependent looking at our dashboard on the measure observatory in Hawaii that tells us, month by month, if we like, just where we are in terms of CO2 emissions. And that cannot, there's plenty of evidence to say that we are on a completely unsustainable. And so the question is, given that we have failed so far, we have tried to pull levers to improve the performance and largely failed, even though the effort has been excellent so far. I see you've got some problems with the sound. If that's going to be an issue, please, and I'll take the video off. That may help. I'll do that now. Just be helpful. Okay, I've taken the video off. Please let me know if there's a problem with the sound. I want fiber, so it should be fine, but that's such is life. So back to the thank you very much. Back to the presentation. So our move then from improving our sources of electricity, improving our mobility systems, and I think our construction methods are priorities. But for the last 15 years or so, there has been a lot of effort looking at what we can do about sustainable consumption and production. And product design and product life cycle are key to that. And I thought that's where Javier's presentation was very helpful, because it gave us details about just one product category where the frustration is. Although it's possible to have a far better business model. The fact that because of the driver for convenience principally, and the fact that there's no legal framework to prevent that primacy of convenience, we've ended up with a product policy equipment, but we could repeat that in so many other areas. So what evidence do we have? I think the first thing I want to point to is that in terms of the CO2 footprint of Nabil Nasser, Professor Nabil Nasser provided a very good report through the UN Environment Programme last year, and that was to say that extending the life of products through remanufacturing, refurbishment, reconditioning, reuse has a very significant reduction on the CO2 of our products. Just by extending life, typically by just a few years, reduction in CO2 footprint can be between 50 and 97%. So this is a target that's worth chasing. And as I think Javier pointed out, at the moment, only about 2% of products that can be remanufactured. The vast majority are brought back at the end of life for material destruction, and then those materials recycled, which is very energy, or indeed simply discarded and thrown away through the waste management system. So I think the evidence from the UN Environment Programme from Nabil Nasser I'd recommend. The second thing, lifetimes themselves. There's a perception, a general perception, that the lifetime of products has been falling. Now, Connie Bakker, a Dutch academic, did investigate this question for the UN Environment Programme and found that, in fact, we do not have very good evidence to back up that perception that our products are typically not lasting as long. Certainly, there's a perception less repairable, hence the right to repair movement. Whether, I think, as Javier hinted, that the reason that we don't have enough evidence a point at in relation to that perception, public perception, that doesn't mean to say that we should not progress on the basis that we think from there for the moment, whilst we're gathering that evidence. But I think first and foremost, it means that we should what are the constraints on extending product life in products? How do we address? And what are the big things that we could do to improve from typically 2% being remanufactured to something much higher? And the comparison that I make is that in the 1990s, material recycling for products was typically somewhere between 5 and 6%. And now, through legislation, we've moved that significantly up to maybe 30 to 40%. And the question for me is, if we're currently at 2% on remanufacturing, what might we achieve if we set out to do that? Now, I think the potential is enormous in this space, because at 2%, if we were to only get to 4%, then I think we would have, we would at least double the impact that remanufacturing having. The UN Environment Programme has set up a new working group specifically to work on product extension, by which they mean both remanufacturing, refurbishment, reconditioning, repair, and reuse. Remanufacturing is the highest level of those activities. And remanufacturing is typically done at a scale, whereas, for example, repair might be just 1 or 2 products. Between them, if the product has been designed for repair, then it's very likely to be taken through an industrial process for remanufacturing as well. And because there are so many different definitions of what we mean by product life extension, there is an effort going on at the moment to establish new standards for remanufacturing. Now that's happening globally. Competition between China, the US, and the EU on establishing what those be. I would highlight that there's being established European standards to help to shape remanufacturing as the highest form of life, and that is through the EN 45553 and the accompanying series. I'd recommend that. I'd also highlight the work that's going on at EU level on eco-design. We think, at least until recently, has been mostly concerned with products that are electrical. I've got a plug on the end of them, but I think we extend into many products in the future. There is some competition there between what we mean by eco-design and what the Ellen MacArthur Foundation want to call circular design, but I think let's for the term eco-design and its implications. A great deal of work's been done in that area, and I think that will spill over in the next several years into better design. And then look also at the circular economy ISO standard that's being developed. There's a technical committee, TC33, is currently drafting that new circular economy ISO standard, which will be published in 2022-23, which will be helpful in establishing, albeit in a voluntary way, what the legal framework would be for those who achieve a more circular economy. So at the European Council, what are we trying to achieve? Well, firstly, the potential to extend remanufacturing is large. We're aiming to move from 30 billion euros across Europe for remanufacturing at the moment to 100 billion by 2030. And to do this together companies that are currently remanufacturing. And those they include companies such as Volvo Cars, SKF, ball bearings company, Vallejo, the automotive component manufacturer, but also with tires and other products that they remanufacture, but a whole series of also smaller companies that are competing to improve this model. Now I see we're having sound problems, so I'm not going to continue, given that there's a technical problem. It must be frustrating on your end. So we'll do question and answers as we can. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, yeah, David, thank you very much for your intervention. I think that we have some little problems of sound, but it's still very, very interesting. Leila, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Nice.
Hello. Do you need my help?
No, I think that David has finished, but if you have any question to David, please reply now.
Yeah, for any questions, the participants should put questions in the chat box.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay, I think that
maybe one from my side before the other participants jump in, because we concluded the session really fast. For David, what is the latest development that you think that is crucial in pushing the agenda further? And what is the next step to take? What would you say is the next step to take, and what was already achieved that is super important to push the agenda further?
Okay, thank you for the question. And I must say I'm very sorry that it's not possible to communicate clearly with everybody. So what's the most important thing that's happening? So I think the single most important change which I have seen in the past 4 years since we established the European Remanufacturing Council is the level of interest amongst OEMs, original equipment manufacturers. My view about this is that we have, thanks to the effort of so many people around the world, we have got to a point where the debate about sustainable consumption and production has reached some of the right ears in large companies. So we're working with the World Economic Forum at the moment with the aim of asking OEMs to take a wider view of what they are doing with their products. Now that isn't always easy because you ask yourself, why would they do that? Which is why I thought that keynote presentation was so good this morning. What are the drivers to make companies take this seriously? And I think principally is that consumer pressure, buyers, customers, particularly younger people, that is being measured, that their view about the type of product that they're buying and using and the life cycle is seen to be unacceptable, and that a company that can break through in the way that Brother, Ricoh, Lexmark have done so or trying to do so in the imaging equipment sector, if that could be seen to be successful, if we can back that competitive move, then I think we would see a significant change in the number of products that could be designed for remanufacturing and which will be. So that gives me some degree of optimism. On the other hand, let me say that I did completely agree with some of the points that Professor Scharf had made this morning. And that is that when you ask, if we take the automotive sector, for example, no components are currently remanufactured to put back in new vehicles. And the reason for that is entirely to do with the legal framework around manufacturing new products. So unless we change that, there will never be a flow of large-scale remanufactured components being directed back to new production for the automotive sector. And I think that's repeated elsewhere. So changing the legal framework is very important. But at the same time, I say also that pressure from particularly more youthful customers, it is changing attitudes amongst OEMs. Is that helpful, Leila?
Oh, yeah, David, thank you. Leila is asking now, how does the purchasing power of the young generation tie in here? So in the sense that the linear economy tends to produce cheap, easily, and accessible products.
Yep. So how does this work? So I can tell you for a fact that two of the world's largest OEMs making consumer products, because most remanufacturing is in the business to business area, not in the business to consumer area. But these two very large, world's largest companies have carried out market research, which has given them a very clear signal that their products are perceived as being damaging to the environment because they are designed not to last long. They're designed to frustrate repair. And so the youthful consumers are signaling through that market research process, standard market research process, that they are unhappy about that. And that gets picked up. If it's a large enough number, it gets picked up by the OEM designers.
Yeah, in this case, Javier is commenting that why offenses to a particular person is more severely punished than offenses to all of us. In this case, is the punishment to the environment. So, so in this case, I also want you to ask that, do you think that there are any kind of business model in this case, or any different form or consumption that will not affect, in this case, the environment, in this case, negatively? So we can change it and consume products with a positive impact in this case?
Yeah, so the simple answer to that question is that product life extension, making that possible, enabling that, will have a very significant impact on at least one of those planetary boundaries, and sometimes several of those planetary boundaries. So product life extension is important. That's why it's being pursued by the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. It is one of those sort of hidden benefits that if we could set the legal framework and overcome some of the technical challenges in doing this, then we would have it'd be a step change in the way that we organize our product policy to make it more sustainable. It will not be, in my view, yet sustainable enough, but that would be a significant step change. So how to do that at every single product level is different, but we have to make it clear there should be an incentive to do so. Let me give you a quick example of why that is so difficult. Companies that currently do remanufacturing and are part of our council here in Brussels say to me, look, we know there are big carbon benefits from what we do when we remanufacture our products. We bring them back, we disassemble them, we change those components that we need to, test it, we put it back in the product in the market. As that we know lots of CO2 emissions, but there is no reward for us. So, thank you, we wear the badge that we've done something for the environment, but there is no signal, fiscal or otherwise, towards us for doing so. And as Javier points out, in fact, others who do the exact opposite, who try to undermine efforts, will tend to get rewarded or access to rewards more than you do. So that's helpful clarifying what I think the target should be.
Yeah, thank you, David. I don't know if there are more questions now. Just wait 10 seconds to see if someone is writing something more. No, okay. Leila, then.
I would have one question. I wanted to type it, but it takes too long. I would have one question for David. On the national level, the differences between the countries, what is done in terms of the national legal frameworks? Do you have some data on it?
Okay, yeah, Leila, that's a big issue. So let me tell you, I think your question really is, who are the leaders in setting up legal frameworks that favor product life extension? And I would say, oddly enough, China has quietly been working on a framework that by far the largest producer of very cheap linear products. They've quietly been establishing a framework to encourage reward remanufacturing, both in terms of standard and rather novel legal frames. I would say they've been ineffective so far, but it's an interesting benchmark to use. Outside of China, Canada at the moment is investigating how they might take forward the work at G7 on this issue and which policies they might pursue. France, as a country where particularly regulations that they're implementing and experimenting with reuse. And I think Italy has one or two as well, including in the imaging equipment area, where they're encouraging procurement manufactured products and setting targets. The Netherlands, I'd say, have some good examples as well. I've no doubt the leading countries will have something positive to contribute to, although I'm not aware of what's been happening in Scandinavia. Yeah, so I'd highlight those European countries, Canada, and
yeah, Debbie, I think that I have a last question very shortly. Do you think that now in the era post-COVID, let's say, we have some chances now to change something to improve? Because now we are in a problem that the economy is so bad. We all know about that. We can increase now from down its business models that allow us to this green sustainability, let's say like that.
So yes, in answer to that question, I think the place I would most point to would be the hashtag the Great Reset at the World Economic Forum, because there you'll find a lot of the evidence base for how this COVID crisis has transformed opinion about the unsustainability of our pathway in particularly consumption and production. So I think that's where I'd first point to. And is there room for optimism? Well, bringing together some of the world's leading companies to expose the problems and their contribution to those problems is a very healthy process. And so I'd recommend both the book that's being written by Charles Schwab at the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset debate that's going on there at the moment.
Yeah, okay, David, thank you. I don't know, Lela, you have more questions now?
No, all good from my side. So you're ready for your presentation, I guess, and you have generous 45 minutes, but I guess at the end of your presentation, we're gonna pose more questions for the other participants too, if there are still some remaining, okay? So go ahead, Andrei.
Okay, thank you, Lela. So okay, let's start. I will now show my presentation. I just want to activate my video if it's working. Okay, so just a second. I will present in this case. Okay, yeah, now I think it's okay. Just please confirm me. Okay, so now in this little presentation, here I will present something different, let's say, that are the relations between sustainable development goals. Another part of this issue for sustainability, very important. This paper that is written between Marc Oliveras, my colleague, which is also here, and myself, and I will also present some of the main topics that appear. But first of all, I want to explain what are example the Sustainable Development Goals. Here is something very important. These goals appeared a few years ago in the Agenda 2030, and there is a kind of guide, let's say, for countries to achieve this sustainable development. They are created, they formed, sorry, by 169 targets, very different, as you can see here. We talk about poverty, industry, life online, etc. But here I think that one of the main topics that there are created and the first step for countries, but now also agents are, I don't know, in this case, just 1 second. Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, in this case that I think that we have very different topics, and what is very important in this case is we can classify these SDGs in 3 main categories. In this part, we can classify the environment, economy, society, and biosphere, the environmental part. That in this case there are the 3 dimensions of sustainability that also can be applied in this case to this SDG. As we can say, just said before, we have also targets and indicators of that SDG. The targets are, let's say that every SDG is divided in different targets that exactly they work as a guide for everything. And here the main objective of the research was to discover which are the relations between and among, very important, these SDGs in the literature, as a first step, as I say, to apply them later to business. And to do that, we have made in this case a literature review. In this case, we use papers between 215, obviously, because they appear there, and February this year. There were a lot of papers, but finally we selected 20 because these 20 are exactly the papers that talk the relations and present different models of relations. And after that, I will explain because I think that it's very important. Very simple, this descriptive analysis here of the different papers. We can see that it's a topic that is increasing. We can see that until February, only in 2 months of 2020, in this case, we have is the year with almost more papers in the same level that 218 in this case. And also we can see that there are main topics of discussion. Here we can see, for example, the first one is the SDG cross-section. Let's say in this case that I told that there is a different, so all SDG together. Another that are focused in the energy use, another with water resources, economic growth, and finally education. That is one I will explain very well because I think that is exactly the place to explain that. And authors in this case use almost all macro data because of the indicators, and also some interviews to experts and so knowledge. Now let's go inside the content because I think that is an important part. First of all, I think in this case bibliometric analysis with voice viewer, and so far voice viewer in this case, we can see that if we use all papers, the 400 that I told you before. Here we can see that there are 4 different parts in the literature. First of all, we talk about obviously the implementation of the sustainability environment in the city. Also, we talk about the water access, very important. We talk also about the implementation of these SDGs in various countries, China especially, and finally we talk about synergies and trade-off, which is the 2 topics that are very important in this case for our presentation. And if we look to the selected papers, because we are focused now in this part about synergies and trade-offs, we can see here that synergies and trade-offs, I will explain later what's that, are focused on targets. Okay, so here we can take a first conclusion where we talk about these relations between SDGs. We are talking properly the relations between, in this case, targets of the different SDGs, and which is the main tool in this case to create the relation. We have this 7-point scale that Nielsen has created 4 years ago, and in this case he's talking about the existence of synergies and trade-offs. So what is the meaning of these 2 topics? In this case, a synergy means that if you try to achieve one SDG, that will help to achieve it another one. So in this case, it will be the plus 3 in this case if there are individuals, they work together. And on the other part, there are trade-offs. That means that for achieving one SDG, you need to cancel, let's say, another one. For example, the easiest part is, okay, we have industrialization, that's good. but obviously that will not help, in this case, the climate action, okay? So this is the main tool that we have here, this 7-point scale of Nielsen that other author in the future has used, and also in this case has adapted, that we will see from now in a few minutes. So the relations, in this case, I will present here some different models. I think that they're important to see. I just need to know that almost all models are created by Synergies and Tradeoffs. Synergies and Tradeoffs with arrows and squares, sorry. As you can see here, but there are also type of models that I will show you. So first of all, we can see one here of Jaramillo from Brazil. He's trying to connect, as we can see, different targets. Okay, so he is not connecting in this case all SDG. He is connecting. They are connecting in this case different targets. We can see here from SDG 6 and 12, for example. Pradhan, which is very important, is one of the papers with more sites in this case. He is using in this case SDGs, so no only targets. And we can see here some synergies. The first one, I think it's obvious, is sustainable cities and climate action. Okay, that's very nice. And another, which is a trade-off in this case, that maybe it's not for sure, but it appears that this reduction of inequalities and the responsible consumption. You can see here he has created 10 different pairs of synergies and trade-offs. But there are other models. For example, here we have a cross-matrix impact of Feather created by Feather. We can see here different relations inside the same SDG. For example, we can see that there are there are negative effects inside the same SDG. For example, if we look here to SDG 2, we can see that there are negative effects inside them. So here it's very important to see that this trade-off, these synergies, they are created not only between different SDG, let's say industrialization and climate action. Also, there are these problems inside the same SDG. And finally, we have here last one. It is from January, in this case, from Cernev, is a causal loop diagram. But now I want to explain which is the main content, let's say. First of all, we can see here the main results. For example, responsible consumption, SDG 12, will help to achieve decent work. So here we have a synergy. This decent work also will help to achieve 9 industry and infrastructure, and that will have to have clean water for everybody. And one which is very important, I need to explain it here, is the quality of education. Okay, so quality of education is SDG 4. One of the targets talk about, in this case, the education in sustainability. That is very important because all the researchers say that the education in sustainability will help, in this case, to achieve all others SDGs. So I think that it's a very strong conclusion in this case, and in a synergy that also here in the university, of course, we have an opportunity. And I know that here at UPF, it's now implementing. But as we can see here, if we arrive to this quality of education, people will use more renewable energies, and finally, this will allow us also to make a responsible consumption and production. For example, as Javier told before in the presentation about the printers. Also, this clean energy will allow us to have more education. Obviously, an education which is from more quality. In this case, this quality will help to achieve a decent work. Let's say that will allow an economic growth. And finally, it will achieve, obviously, a part of no poverty. But here there is an exception. So there are obviously a trade-off here. As I told before, decent work, economic growth, there's a trade-off, in this case, with the environmental part of the SDGs. These 13, 14 are 15, but there is an exception here. That is circular economy. So here, circular economy allow us to have this decent work, this economic growth, but without this negative impact on the environment. So I think that it's another part which is very important to know. So here we can say, first of all, education, and second, circular economy as a business model that allow this increase, and also will not affect negatively to others SDG. But which is the problem here? The problem here is that it's a topic which is very, very novelty. So as we can see, only 20 papers can be analyzed that create these models. So here there are a lot of gaps and also disagreements inside the same literature. So here there is an opportunity also for researchers to investigate this topic. As a first step, we have different gaps, for example, for companies and countries. So first of all, I have explained that it's created for countries, but also companies can take some actions. And for sure, here we need to think exactly which are the actions that can take. For example, my research is focused on that. Also, here to countries, we have a problem now. Okay, not explained it before, but here the idea is, okay, we have said that synergies will help to achieve both the SDGs and trade-offs, exactly that's the other part. And here the point is, okay, so we need to improve synergies and to reduce trade-offs. No, so it seems that it's something which seems logical, but the effect is exactly the contrary. Okay, so exactly the other sense, because now synergies are reducing between SDGs and trade-offs are increasing. So here we have to think, okay, something is doing wrong. So now for countries, we have this opportunity now to how to create synergies between these SDGs. Also for energy, for example, we know that energy can be used for this economic growth, but have a negative impact on other SDGs. So here we say, okay, how can we use it? And finally, I want to talk about a disagreement. In this case, economic growth, some paper says that create synergies, and other that creates trade-off with equality. So here there is a disagreement in the literature that is very important to solve and to discuss this also in the research. And finally, we have seen an opportunity. Now, circular economy allow us, in this case, to have this increase in economic growth without negative impact. So now the point is, okay, which other business models can allow us to do us? Because here now, as I said before, also talking with David, we have this opportunity now post-COVID, in the era post-COVID, to change our business, to change our business models. So maybe that can be a good option. Okay, circular economy is one, but also the government of Catalonia is working on that, and also maybe there are other models. So just to sum up, and then we can discuss everything. Here, as you can see, is a very new topic. Okay, so is plenty of gaps and different disagreements. Sorry, we need to take into account that point that synergies are reducing and trade-offs are increasing. That is very, very bad. But also we have three main opportunities now, three main conclusions that we will need to use in the future. As a first step, we need that this education, in this green education, let's say in sustainability, can help to achieve all SDGs. Okay, so I want to repeat that because I think that is very, very important. Also now to the university. Also, we need to focus in the renewable energy. Obviously, that seems obviously, but that will help, for example, to promote the economic growth. And finally, we need to find these business models that will allow us to improve the economic growth, to promote it, but without this negative effect on the environment. Okay, now I think I have only a talk for 15 minutes. Maybe it will be a little bit short. Lela, I'm sorry about that. But now I think that we have 15 minutes to questions to discuss something that we know, or if you need more information about something, just let me know.
Okay, perfect, Andrei. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions that are outstanding right now for our presenter? Let me give you a minute or two.
Of course. I will also write my email here in the chat. So please, if you have any question and if you have, please don't hesitate to contact me in the future if it's needed.
Okay, if there are no outstanding questions that you can direct it to the presenter, I would just have one general comment about what you pinpointed out. We need to accept the fact that there are trade-offs. We absolutely need to accept that, and that synergies are needed, right? That is something that is of crucial importance, and I think that we were not used to that in terms of linear economy. That is something that will need to be worked on. And the second thing that I would comment on is, like you said, the synergies need to rise and the gaps need to go down. Whether we're speaking in the corporate sector or in the higher education sector, that is something that absolutely needs to happen. And I think that beautifully ties into what every presenter was saying today, right? Mm-hmm. That we are aware of the shortcomings, that we are aware that there's no quick fix for the problem, neither there is one solution for every single industry, right? But that we need to be aware that now we're working with an environment of extreme complexity, which doesn't mean that we shouldn't act, right? So thank you very much for your presentation. If there are no outstanding questions, since our last speaker got ill, unfortunately, let's take a short coffee break. I think we could all use it. And reconvene here at 12:45. Is that okay for everyone?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lela.
Okay, so we're reconvening at 12:45, and we're starting with the presentations on corporate sustainability from a few professors. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Take a half an hour break.